it seems kind of crazy. Like, who spends all their time working on a card game? And really what it comes back to is my why. As we get older, we play less and less. And that makes sense because we have responsibilities. We have other things we should be doing. The first thing that gets left behind is playing because it's easy to eliminate from your life. But I believe, and it's not just my belief, there's a lot of studies that show that play is extremely beneficial to your health, your well-being, your creativity, your success in life. And at a certain point in our life, we just decide we don't play anymore.
They may have told you to go to the big city, chase the busy crowds, find the bright lights, but no, you chose your own path to stay right here. I'm your host, Claire Bouvier. Welcome to the Small Town Entrepreneur Podcast, where opportunity is just on the other side of the door. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Small Town Entrepreneur Podcast. I got a little surprise for you. Maybe it's more of a surprise for you than me, but fun fact, I am one of 8 children and I have a little brother, and actually I have 3, and one of them is on the call today. I thought it'd be really fun to have a conversation with my brother, Thomas Bouvier. And we're going to kick it off by welcoming Thomas and letting everyone know that he has 5 older sisters. That's right. All one family. People always ask, is this a blended family? Nope. My parents, there's 8 of us. And Thomas, you are one of 8 and you have 5 older sisters.
Number
Welcome
7.
to the show.
Happy to be here. It's funny to be here, actually.
I know.
Yeah.
We usually do this without an audience, so this is kind of fun. Thomas is 100% my go-to guy in anything tech. He's always ahead, always just a little bit ahead of me, and it's fun to chat with him. But we're going to talk about you, Thomas, and first we're going to kick it off by asking, how has 5 older sisters influenced in any capacity your career, your entrepreneurial decisions, your life choices? How has that been an impact for you?
That's funny. Actually, to think, I've never thought about that before. Usually people ask me about how that's affected me with like my dating life or something. But having 5 older sisters, it's sort of like having 5 cooks in the kitchen at all times, maybe. So I'm pretty used to getting feedback, and lots of times pretty harsh feedback, depending on who the sister is or depending on what they're commenting on. But you also get a lot of like feedback's always good. Having 5 sisters growing up is it's not a lot of other people really have 5 sisters. I haven't met anybody with 5 sisters, but
Older
it's been,
sisters too.
yeah, all older. Yeah. I always kind of wanted to have a little sister because I thought that would be fun to like be the older brother in one case,
Not
but
happening.
just have a little brother. But no, I think you just get a lot of feedback. I mean, from a pretty young age on pretty much anything you're doing or working on. And I think that's good because the sooner you can get harsh feedback from somebody, the better. I guess maybe have a thick skin would be maybe the best answer I could give.
Or you question every decision you make. Well, for the listeners, yes, lots of cooks, so to speak, in the kitchen. But as much as I will say Thomas is our younger brother, he plays the older brother in a lot of ways. We go to Thomas for all things to do under entrepreneurial, marketing, productivity. And so I think we're going to look at that and kind of dive into the Thomas Bouvier world of when you left college, you had this completely open-ended world. Why did you choose a very difficult path of entrepreneurship? Why that role?
I mean, it sounds cliche, but like, I just didn't want to do it. I just couldn't say, I tried to do everything else but that. I worked in tech for a while after I graduated from St. Lawrence College, actually, Kingston. Shout out St. Lawrence. Great school. I liked it because we had a co-op program. But after graduating, all I wanted to do my dream job was Silicon Valley, especially growing up in the East Coast. I guess Kingston's not really East Coast, but on the eastern side of Canada, you hear about Silicon Valley as like this place where everything's happening. That's where the tech companies are. I had this image in my head that I was going to be the CMO chief marketing officer of some awesome, cool tech company somewhere in San Francisco at some point in time. And that was kind of my North Star for a while, where that's all I wanted to do. And so my first job coming out of school was I was actually working for this small company called Spivo, and we sold selfie sticks. And
I remember
wh-
that.
yeah, and when I was working there, I felt really embarrassed because selfie sticks was this, I mean, they're selfie sticks. When I look back now and when I talk about it now, I learned a ton working there. It was this selfie stick that when you click a button, the camera would flip 360 degrees. It was by the founding team were these two engineers, and they just loved tinkering with things. So it was this insanely complicated system that they patented, and they had the whole system. So I learned a ton. I'm still friends with those guys, actually. They're fantastic, Andre and Mark. And I worked there for, I think, about a year and a half or something. And then I got an opportunity to come out to Vancouver. The girl I was dating, still am dating, was out here. And so I came out for a month-long trip, and that was 6, 7 years, maybe 8 years ago, actually.
That's what happens
And
when you love a human and love a new location.
yeah, Vancouver is fantastic. And the interesting thing about Vancouver is its proximity to Silicon Valley or San Francisco. So
Right.
there's in Vancouver, there's a lot of satellite offices for all these companies I had dreamed of working for as I was in school and graduating from school. So then I had my first opportunity to work in Silicon Valley. So I got this job at a company where every quarter I'd be flying down there for a few weeks, and I got to, walk to work every day. I was living in when I would work there, I was staying at hotels in Union Square, and I'd walk to the financial district and walk into my office. But then every day that I was there, I kind of hated it. And it was this,
Newsflash.
yeah, it sucked a lot because not just because I didn't like the job, but I didn't like anybody else's job either. So I looked at my boss and I was like, can I see myself doing her job? And I thought, not really. That doesn't seem that fun. That like, I don't like her life. And then I looked at her boss, and then her boss bought, and then I kept going all the way up to the CMO position, which was like this coveted role that I always thought I wanted. And I didn't want his job either. And so that was a real, pardon
But
my French, but
boom.
yeah, kind of a shitty moment because it's like, what do I do now? Because here I am, I've achieved the thing that I thought that was my North Star, or I thought I was on the path to doing that thing. And now I realized that wasn't for me. And then I thought maybe it's the company. And so then I jumped around. I worked at 3 different tech companies, same thing at all of them. And then I even tried working for a moving company. This was the last job I had before. So it was a
See,
moving
listeners, I
franchise.
did not know this. So this is
Yeah.
just as exciting for me, maybe as you.
So yeah, so there's a moving franchise that had franchises all across the United States and Canada. I was working for head office, and I thought, oh, maybe if I have, because from Kingston, Claire and I grew up in a blue collar area where we worked. Our summer jobs were a lot of like working on farms or
Bet.
landscaping, working at local markets, that kind of thing. And
Until
so
you
I
get
thought,
fired.
yeah, until you get fired. And
Another story, another time.
and so I thought maybe if I work at a company like that where I'm on the tech side, but I'm mostly working with a different group of people, not just like your Silicon Valley VCs, that
Mhm.
might be a little bit more my speed. I didn't love that either. So through trial and error, I realized the only thing I really enjoyed doing was working for myself, working on products, making things that I dreamed up in my own home, and then I could see through from ideation all the way to fulfilling whatever that product was. So that's a long way of saying I was a bad employee and I had no other options.
Well, you know what? I think for the listeners, and everyone can give you all the rule book of like, don't do this, try this. But really, at the end of the day, as you know, try as many things as possible, fail fast, get out of there, move on. You did that. Now, before we jump to what you're doing right now, which is super cool, and I'm excited to dive deep into that, there was the next transition, the hype world of, I know you were working in, not to full details, but you were working both in the crowdsourcing space and then in the Web3 space. Do you want to comment on we move from being an employee to be kind of entrepreneurial, but you're still on what we call Web 2, working with other third parties and leveraging your skill sets to build your own products, services, or buy them.
I guess the first thing was I tried making a YouTube channel when I was still working at these companies, and which actually ties closer to what I'm doing now than what I did next. But so I started with little things here, like little weekend projects where it's like, oh, I'm gonna make a video about doing something I've never done before. So I made a series of videos. It was called Adult Recess, where I would just go and do the things that I always wanted to do as a kid. Because as a kid, when you ask someone what's your favorite subject, 90% of them will say recess. And then if you
Jim.
tell them you can't say recess, they'll say gym or they'll say art class. They'll say anything but like math, science, geography, or history or whatever. And so I kind of was like, well, I'm not feeling super fulfilled in my work. I'm going to go and do something else for the first time. And I'm going to hold myself accountable by making it into a YouTube channel series. The videos were not very good. That didn't matter. The whole point was just making them and holding myself accountable to
Right.
doing something I hadn't done before. And that was really fun. I really liked doing that. But that I kind of saw as my first foray into entrepreneurship. It was the first time I did something, put it out into the world. There was no financial incentive to do it. I mean, I made no money off it. I continue to make no money off that. But it was the first time publishing something that wasn't within the confines of my job.
Right.
What that ended up turning into though was why I quit my final job, which was at that moving company. I was working with a friend of mine, Oscar, on this project called Ology. And Ology was all based around this idea of one day you're going to die. Oscar and I bonded over, I was doing this adult recess project. Oscar really came from Kickstarter background. He's raised millions of dollars on Kickstarter doing product design. I've learned pretty much everything I know about product design and manufacturing from Oscar. And pretty much what I was bringing to the table was the fact that I was willing to do random stuff and go along with whatever we were going to do. Just being open-minded was my main unique value proposition, really. And so I learned a ton from that experience. And really, what I was focused on is this element of play. And then what Oscar was most focused on was this theory of like, not theory, but this thought of like one day you're going to die and use that as a daily reminder, sort of this memento mori, one day you're going to die sort of ideas. And that's something that's actually really stayed with me even till today. Constantly think about that. I have one of the posters that we made right there, and it shows 100-year life in weeks. So each circle is 1 week of your life. That's if you live 100 years. The average American lives to be about 78. So you probably won't get that full 100. And it's
Hey,
just a good
hey.
reminder to be doing what you want to be doing. It's just a good reminder. And that's really like that idea of like one day you're going to die. Sometimes for a lot of people, what they need to work on something that they might think is embarrassing or is below them, or to quit the job that they gives them status,
Mhm.
or allows them to live a life that might be above their means, or whatever it happens to be.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
constantly being aware of the fact that you're not going to be here forever is a pretty good reminder that you may as well just do the thing you want to do now, because there's not going to be a later. But yeah, that was the first project that we did. After that, we launched a Kickstarter. It was pretty good. Ultimately, we decided that we were better off working on our own individual projects, but it was really fun while we were doing it. And now Oscar's continued to create these fantastic products that I think he's releasing a massage tool in the next couple weeks that looks really cool. So check it out on Kickstarter. Origin Design Company.
Okay.
But yeah, I've done a lot of random things since then. I've designed a journal for folks with ADHD. You mentioned the Web3 thing. I spent 2 years, like most of my day, working on Web3 products. So trying to make genuinely useful products within Web3. I think most people, their idea of Web3 or crypto is kind of around this idea of like the 99% of it that is gambling or scams or some other
Useless
nef-
NFTs.
nefarious, or yeah, or like just useless crap. And I was really trying to build things that I found had a lot of value and a lot of use. I think where I come in is too early. And I heard Jeff Bezos talk about this on Lex Friedman's podcast, where he benefited a ton from the infrastructure that came before him. So
Mm.
the internet as an infrastructure. Amazon doesn't exist without the internet. Amazon doesn't exist without the original, like the first iteration of Amazon didn't exist without the postal service. It didn't exist
Mm-hmm.
without the interstate highway system. So there's all this infrastructure that went into
Mm-hmm.
making Amazon to, one of the world's most valuable companies. And the reason he was talking about that, he's talking about how now with Blue Origin, they're building the infrastructure in space. And
Mm-hmm.
that sounds crazy, but what he's doing, I mean, he has the money to do it, so whatever, go crazy. My thought on that is that within crypto, Web3, blockchain's been around for a long time, but
Mm-hmm.
the infrastructure really hasn't been built to be
Mainstream
really
audience.
useful for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And really, people are going to continue to think of crypto and blockchain and Web3 as mostly a scam and mostly stupid stuff until that infrastructure is really built out. And then you start to see people build really, really, really useful and cool and creative things on top of that infrastructure. Who knows how long that'll be,
I
but
agree.
I'm really optimistic about it. And yeah, in the meantime, you just kind of have to deal with the fact that there's going to be a lot of crap and a lot of stuff that is not good.
Well, this is a conversation we have. You think about the early iterations of the internet. Everything went. If someone said, "Oh, I read it on the internet," you'd laugh. And I know, my dear
Yeah.
Thomas, this is where I age my sibling ranking here, but I am the second oldest. He's the seventh, and we didn't have internet. But when it did come out, it was this hilarity of where you're like, no, you get it from a book. The internet's just a big lie. So I
Yeah.
think kind of I feel like I'm seeing the second, iteration of that, but now Web3, where, it still has that, like you said, that scammy, you know, it's not super legitimate yet until it is, like you said, the infrastructure strengthened. So that's really cool. So here we are. We've gone down this path. Thomas, this is like, first of all, you can reiterate for our audience, but I think everyone listening, and I remember hearing someone say, or Shania Twain said, "Oh, your overnight success." And she said, "Wait, you mean my 10-year overnight success?" And I think I've said this before, but it really resonates because it's not linear. Like, you don't know when that moment, if you keep sticking to it, you keep hustling, what's keeping you motivated to keep failing? Sorry,
Uh,
that's
no, it's a good question. I mean, one of them is the thing I said at the very beginning is I don't have any other options. You know, I don't really see working anywhere as an option anymore. So there's that. And then there's just if you really believe in whatever it is you're making, Simon Sinek has his TED Talk on Start with Why. I mean, he wrote a whole book about it. And
Mhm.
if you have a why that you're doing something, you'll do unrealistic things or kind of it doesn't make sense to anybody else why you're doing it or why you continue to do it. And that's really it. Is you just have a reason why you're doing it. And I mean, that's really that's really all it is. Like it's not any more complicated than that. Is I just believe in what I'm doing, and I'll talk about what I'm doing in a moment.
I like this hype though. We're really leaving the
But
audience to not
yeah,
know
ooh,
where
get
this is
excited.
going. You're good at what you do. People in your town know it. But imagine if the entire country did. Picture people all around the world knowing what you did. I use Kajabi, and it isn't just another website builder. It is the one-stop shop for me. It's a launch pad for your experience, whether it's courses, memberships, community, email marketing, sales funnels, landing page, website, and more, and all in one place. With no tech, no headaches, your knowledge is the product. Kajabi just delivers. Stop fiddling with all the plugins and start sharing your awesome today. Use my link, clairebouvier.com/tools, and in the show notes.
Yeah, so I'll just get right into it. I make games, and I'm focused on one game in
Video
particular right now.
games, got it. We got to clarify for the audience because we're
Yeah,
thinking video games.
could be anything. It is board games. It's more specifically, it's a card game. The game is called Alphabet. I actually have a box here right now of the first version of it. So the version that
Alphabeto.
so this is already being in the process of being phased out, making a new version of the game that will be getting released in the next few months here. That's really what I'm spending most of my time doing. And yeah, it seems kind of crazy. Like who spends all their time working on a card game?
Yeah,
Me.
why?
I do.
Because
I do.
I do want to know why. We haven't gone there. I will just sneak in a little like
Yeah.
I'm all about hyping people and being really honest, and I bring people on that I do believe in. Thomas, you are my brother, but I believe in you. But I can say I have played so many board games or card games, and you know what kills me is the bloody instructions. When someone sits down and they're going, I'm
Yeah.
off, and yes, ADHD, but I find a lot of people are like that, I feel like they just tune out. But this
Yeah.
board game, within 15 seconds, not even, I understood it. And you and me played on a rooftop in Vancouver for 3 hours, and
Oh
I had
yeah.
to be pulled away. It was awesome. So there's the little like shout out to the game because it's
Mhm.
simple, but it's good and you can take it anywhere. So yeah, why a board game after all the tech, all the resources, all the knowledge, everything you've worked in Silicon Valley startups to building in Web3, and now here we are. Sorry, but I call it just, a simple little rinky dink card
S-
game.
Super simple. Yeah. And really what it comes back to is my why that I've been tinkering with as long as I've been working is this idea of play.
Right.
As we get older, we play less and less. And that makes sense because we have responsibilities, we
Mm-hmm.
have other things we should be doing. The first thing that gets left behind is playing because
Yep.
it's easy to eliminate from your life. But I believe, and it's not just my belief, there's a lot of studies that show that play is extremely beneficial to your health, your well-being, your creativity, your success in life, your
Mm-hmm.
ability to perform at your highest level. And at a certain point in our life, we just decide we don't play anymore. And it's funny, during this project, I've thought a lot about when I stopped playing, and I can pinpoint the first time I stopped playing. It was about a week to a week and a half before my ninth birthday.
Oh,
It was
gosh.
it's not that I stopped playing, it's just the first time I made a decision that I wasn't going to play.
Oh,
And
okay. I
so
thought you
someone,
meant just like you
no,
never.
no,
Okay.
I definitely played after that. But it was the first time I thought, oh, maybe I'm not going to play. And here's what happened. Someone came to me, one of our siblings came and said, "Hey, what do you want for your birthday?" And I thought about it for a moment. And my 10th birthday in the Bouvier household was an important birthday. It was kind of like a coming of age moment for some reason. You got to have like a pocket knife and a
I was gonna
slingshot and a
say,
bow and
should we
arrow.
share that?
It was like a weapons birthday or something like that.
Yeah,
It
we
was
grew
like
up in the
you're,
country. You got to
yeah,
whittle on wood, and it's not about
yeah,
killing. It was literally you could whittle a
yeah.
stick in the
Yeah,
backyard.
I think what that birthday kind of represented was, oh, we're going to trust you now with
Mhm.
these tools that are dangerous. And I thought of like my ninth birthday as like, oh, I need to become this new person by the time my 10th birthday comes around. And so I said, I want tools. I want a crescent wrench. I want screwdrivers, all this stuff. And I was like, no toys for me this year. I shouldn't have
Oh,
toys. I still got toys for
yeah.
that birthday. I think I may have gotten a wrench or something, like a adjustable crescent wrench or something from somebody, probably for them as a joke. But I remember looking at it being like, nice. Like, okay, sick. I have like that's my first tool in my tool belt kind of thing. But what's really interesting about it is like you keep doing those little things throughout your life. I remember in grade 7, my older sister, your younger sister, had a birthday party. She's only 1 year older than me, so the kids at her birthday were all there, and I knew them, and I was like, I'm gonna race you back to the house. We were like back in the fields or something, and they're like, oh, we don't do that. When you're in grade 8, you don't do races like that anymore. And I remember thinking like, oh man, I'm so glad they told me. I would have been racing people all the time, and I wanted to. And so there's these little things that happen over time that stop you from playing,
Yeah.
and it's so sad. Like, but
It
like
is because I still race people.
totally. I mean, I can't remember who it was that was talking about this, but I think it's like 80% of people after the age of 30 never sprint again in their life. Like a
Oh,
flat out sprint. That's a crazy fact. So,
I don't know where you got that, but I'm now very curious and I'm going to start asking people now. I'm going to ask them, opening up the podcast, when was the last time you sprinted? That will be
Yeah.
fun. Okay.
You can ask them, when's the last time you were in a treehouse? When's the last time you used a skipping rope or outside of like a hit exercise class? There's all these things that you just
Double
stop
Dutch.
doing
Yeah.
at some point in time. But I could tell you, like, most people could tell you the last time they did something responsible, the last time they went grocery shopping, the last time they made a meal,
Right.
all these
Right.
things that you do start doing. And the reality is there's less and less ways to play as you get older because we don't have tools to play. When you're a kid, even if you ask for tools for your birthday, you still get toys because that's just what you give 9-year-olds because those are the products that are available to 9-year-olds. I think board games and card games specifically are one of the last acceptable things as you get older as a tool to give somebody to play. And
Hmm.
granted, most of the people that have bought these and will buy this alphabeto are still probably going to be kids. They're in that age range, but ideally some adults will be playing with them and they'll get some of that benefit. And so really what alphabeto is, it's a tool for play. When you're a kid, you've got a playground that you can just go and there's already kids there. And so that comes to the second point of like why I made alphabet so you could learn so quickly. When a kid goes to a playground, they don't sit there reading a bunch of rules on how to play tag or how to play all these games. In fact, even in games that there's more nuance to them, one kid can just look at what the other kids are doing and jump right into the game without really having been told too much. They basically just have to be told who's it right now, who's the bad guy, who are the good guys, who's on my team, who's on the other team, and then they're good to go. And that's
Yeah.
really what I wanted to get across with Alphabeto. So Alphabeto, the way it works is dead simple. We'll learn it right now.
Oh no.
Okay, here's a card. I don't know
Okay.
if you can read it. A
It's a
vegetable
vegetable. Yep.
that starts with the letter A.
Asparagus.
Asparagus, avocado, artichoke. There's a few
Oh,
of them, right?
wow. Okay,
All right.
asparagus came to me, but I
And
I love
that's
this.
it's
Like,
interesting because avocado and artichoke were the ones that came to me. So it's just funny the way people's brains work differently. I always find that interesting. But that's the game. So I'm holding the game up right now if you're just listening to the audio version. So it comes with 3 decks of cards. There's the letter cards, which is just 60 letter cards. They're A through Z. And then you've got 2 decks of category cards. And those categories could be a vegetable. It could be things that are soft. It could be pasta shapes, ice cream flavors, things in this room, things you take camping, all kinds of
mhm.
different categories and topics for you to riff off of.
It gets your
It's
heart rate up. I will say that because you are like, oh my gosh. I remember in school, like things that rhyme with this. Like, I don't care how old you are,
yeah,
games are fun. Can I
games are
jump in
fun.
quickly?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think this is really cool because I just don't want us to forget about this important part was the importance of play. I think we can all agree, but again, it's never a sense of urgency because the repercussions take a lot longer to kick in, which I want to address is like, what are some of those repercussions and what are the positives? What do we see as benefits? Like, how does it come across? But something I think is really interesting, and I know this because you're my brother and we've talked about this, but for the listeners, I think it's really important to notice that because the game is so simple, it allows someone, like you said, to have a lot of interpretation to it and make it malleable based on the time of day, who's playing it, how many is involved. And I think our nieces and nephews were all playing and you were watching them playing. Can you comment on how that was like interesting because again, part of building this, like any prototype, it's testing and getting feedback.
Yeah. The game that I just showed you is prototype number probably 18 or 19 at this point. The next one is I probably going to be the final one for the first classic version, but knowing me, I'll probably make 30 more versions of it. But yeah, like you said, the playtesting and the prototyping is the most important part about designing a board game or a card game. And it's really interesting. One of the things I really wanted to do was make sure that really anybody could play this game.
Right.
And so you can scale Alphabeto down to
Mhm.
kids that are just learning to read. So, however, 3 to 4 years old, and you can play with just the letter cards. And so you can hold up the letter A and say, can you think of any word that starts with the letter A? And then a kid
Or
will sit
what
there
letter
thinking,
is
they might,
this?
yeah, or what letter this is, so they might say apple. And then you're
Yeah.
like, great. You hold up the letter B and they're like, hell yeah, I know how this goes. Banana. Then you hold up the letter C and they're like, oh dear, I don't know any fruits that are,
Carrot.
they, yeah, exactly. So they may say carrot. And that works really well for kids about 3, 4 to 6, 7 ish. And then 6, 7 to 9 ish, you can then scale up a little further and use just the category card. So it's a little bit more difficult, but not I guess, the most difficult version. And you hold up a category and you say, can you think of any ice cream flavor? Can you think of anything that's red? Can you think of, any vegetable? And then they play that way. And then once they are playing the way that the game was initially designed to be played, which is a category that starts with a particular letter, then you can
Mhm.
play that way as well. And like you said, the game can be adapted to play in a lot of different ways. So there's actually a site that I've been making. It's called More Ways to Play. And it's right now, I think there's 11 different ways that you can use the deck of cards to play lots of different games. So if you're more of a visual person, you can kind of play this sort of like Pictionary alphabeto hybrid where you can go off into teams and
Hmm.
you flip up one category card and one letter card. So it might be, we'll just go with the ice cream flavors thing, ice cream flavors that start with the letter M. And so now you might have 2, 3, 4, 5 teams or whatever. And the artist, we'll call them, on each team is drawing whatever they're thinking about. And the goal is to try and think of whatever word they're drawing before any of the other teams do. And you can play it where it's whoever gets the most or whoever does it first, whatever. That's a really fun way of playing. And then you can mix that out for like a charade style, where instead of being a drawer, you're acting out whatever it happens to be.
So on the
So, yeah.
box, I'm jumping in on the box. You know how it says best for 3+ or 10+? Are you writing like 0 to 1,000 years of age?
Yeah,
That'd be
I
fun.
mean, I should do that. The only issue with doing that is
Categories for
you
selling.
well, you can get into trouble with if you have products that are not made for kids. So, because as soon as you start saying, "Oh, a 3-year-old can use this," and you put it on the packaging, now you're running into an issue of like, "Oh, well, you need special certification to say that." Because then
Okay.
they have to test the dyes, they have to test the materials, they have to test all these
Okay.
things.
Wow. I did not
So,
know that, but that is
yeah,
really amazing. Okay. You're sharing
world
all
of
this information. What if, let's say, Jeff Bezos, hey, Jeff, listening in on this, what if he tomorrow wants to create, like, just rip your idea? Because I know this took a lot of time to come to something so simple but powerful. Isn't that the
uh,
reality?
yeah, I mean, but that's true of anything, really. I used to be very protective over ideas and products or whatnot, but it's so hard to make products. It's so hard to make things that
Mhm.
like if you're listening to this and thinking like you're protective over your idea or you're like getting people to sign NDAs, unless you have like the cure to cancer or some like highly, highly specialized thing and there or like this really specific software that does something incredibly specific, it just doesn't matter that much. Your
Mhm.
idea, if it's a good idea, it's probably already been done by somebody. I mean, the concept of thinking of a category and a word that fits the category that starts with a specific letter, you could say categories did that ages ago, but they haven't really iterated on that original idea at all. And so this is really just like a card. You could call this categories with more steps or categories in a box or the
Yeah.
card game version of categories is kind of the way I pitch it to people because they know what categories are. And
Right.
then it makes it a lot easier. So it's like categories could be watching this and be thinking, oh, we could have done that, you know? And it's like, I'm really just iterating on somebody else's idea. If somebody else wants to do the exact same thing, go crazy. Good luck. But
And
like,
I like that. And I think that's where I was kind of hoping you would say, because you talked about this is the thing, why people don't create a lot of products. I know we're jumping around, this is us, but can we go
yeah.
back a bit and talk about, though, like, yeah, staying motivated? Because I think you've really determined your why, and that's powerful. And now after this, I'm going to think about, okay, what am I going to do to play today? Because I know there's tons of psychological benefits, and we'll look at. But with product packaging and the manufacturing side, What are the biggest things that you've taken away knowing that there's just so much that most people don't know about because we don't go through that journey? What are the things that you really had to do that you've been really powerful lessons that you've learned in the manufacturing space?
I have a simple one, and it's simplify. It's easy to get caught up in your first idea and think it needs to have all this stuff. The reality is, it probably doesn't. You probably only have, if you think your thing's a good idea, there's probably only one part of it that's a good idea, and the rest of it is just extra. So it's like you have to constantly keep thinking, like, okay, what else can I take away without removing the soul of whatever the product is?
Right.
And you can convince yourself you need all this extra stuff or
Mhm.
these extra like angles to it, but you're A, gonna make it really difficult to manufacture that thing, and B, you're gonna make it really difficult to sell that thing because you're gonna be selling it and trying to talk about all the different angles to it. You're like, oh, and it does this, and it does that, and it does this other thing. An interesting story about that is when James Dyson first came up with the Dyson vacuum cleaner, it also made a really good dry cleaning tool, but he
Hmm.
never pitched it as that because people can't handle more than one big idea at a time. And that is literally a quote from David Ogilvy is people can't handle more than one great idea at a time. And that's an important thing to remember is just focus on one idea and just hammer that thing home because
Yeah.
people, especially nowadays, we're getting exposed to so much stuff all the time
Yeah.
that if you do have a good idea, just focus on that. Just
Yeah.
don't think about any of the other stuff because A, you're probably just going to be hurting yourself. And then to go back to the manufacturing side of things, of like how difficult it actually is to manufacture something, every little change you make is exponentially more difficult.
And more expensive.
And yeah, yeah, which translates into expensive.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to manufacture your first thing and you've never manufactured anything before, manufacture something that already exists.
Yeah.
That's why my first product was a journal. I was like,
Meaning that
journals
there's a
exist.
mold or something that they have
Yeah,
the product line, someone else has
exactly.
done the mold, and you're
Hmm.
just leveraging, you're almost decorating an existing product.
Essentially, yeah. And when you realize how difficult that is, even though that is dead simple, it's still not going to be right. It's still
Yeah.
not going to go the way you think it's going to go. The first product I ever manufactured on my own without anybody's help was a journal, and it still was not the right thing. Like it still had issues with it. Like I wanted all the pages to be perforated, and the perforations on the first version were not deep enough. So I paid for the perforations, but the pages didn't rip
So,
out. And in the next version, it was perforated too much, and so the pages came right out. And so
uh,
like
yeah,
it's
that's
just little
actually, yeah. We don't
there's
think
little
about
things
those
like
things.
that.
Yeah.
And that's really frustrating as a user or choosing paper like the cardstock thickness. I went with 70 grams per square meter. Probably should have gone for 75, which is like or 80 because you can't really get 75. But I should have gone probably for 80, but I went with 70 because that's what the manufacturer kind of recommended. But then I didn't realize that people that I was selling to were using fountain pens, and fountain pens use a lot more ink, and so you have more bleed through. So there's like even something as
Wow.
simple as just a journal
Yeah.
can then all of a sudden have these like degrees of complications or complexities that you end up, yeah, like making something that people don't want. I spent a ton of time making a journal that I spend so much time on the look and the feel of the journal. It has like this fabric outer shell and a DeBoss logo and all this stuff. So it looks really cool. But I put all of the good content every 14 pages. So like 80% of the book or 85% of the journal is really just blank pages. And then all the content that's really beneficial, helpful content is on like only like every 14 pages, where I should have just every page should have had one piece, one thing to focus on, one specific thing for that day. Again, to go back to the beginning, simplify.
Right.
Just remove everything you think you need.
It
Like
will be more
right there,
complicated.
oh, it's going to be way more complicated than you think.
Right.
But
That's
yeah,
really interesting. And even just talking about the journal, because those are the details people have no idea when they purchase something at the store. They don't know the
yeah,
iterations and behind the scenes. And it's really interesting because I'm going to share with the audience. Maybe this is a Bouvier trait, but, trying lots of things. And I have, with my ADHD, my personality is I have a really hard time staying motivated if I can't ship something immediate. The immediacy of rewards for me need to happen. And it's as simple as we're doing this episode. Well, I know it's going to be packaged and shipped out into the world within a couple of weeks. I can handle that. I have a really tough time. And that's where I learned, even being a high school teacher, I would spend 3, 4 months with students and they didn't write their exam till way at the end. And even that, I wanted to see successes from them faster. And maybe that's something I need to work on. But I recognize where I thrive is a little bit of spontaneity and shipping the product, service, whatever I'm doing. This is why this model of podcasting, I love talking to people. I love getting, as I'm learning about this, I get to ship it and share it with the world. How do you, Thomas, because I'm always inspired by people that can sit on these slow sales cycles and, iteration 10, like I would lose it. I would stop. Like, how do you keep building? And I know it says you go back to your why, and I get that. Has there been any point where you've recognized the sweet spot for you? Like, where's the reward or where's the motivation kicking in when you're slowly building something and it comes back to you and you're waiting? Like, what are you doing in the interim? How do you manage that from a mindset perspective?
Yeah, it's a good question because this is something, it's a learned behavior for me. It's definitely learned because it's learned by force almost. And I guess you could say it's like burn the boats. So for me, I'll just say, okay, this is what I'm doing. And I make it impossible to do anything else. So I make sure that everything in my life relies on me completing that thing. I'm motivated by fear, I think. I saw, which sounds kind of crazy, but like,
This
so it's like,
reminds me not to go back, but I think there's a lot of studies, even your godfather early introduced that into our family where scaring yourself, your memory increases.
yeah, I can't remember what group of people it is, but I think it's like in a Nordic country. One of the things they would do is when they were teaching the kids really important lessons, especially on like safety or like life-saving lessons, they would teach them the lesson and then immediately throw them in an ice cold lake or in an ice cold river. And the adrenaline spike that they would have, they would learn super, super quickly, which is like obviously like that
Kind of
sounds crazy.
aggressive, a
Yeah,
little.
I should look that up and find out exactly who that was because I remember, again, a lot of my facts and figures come from podcasts, I realize. So take all this with a grain of salt. But going back to like how I think about it is I have my why, which is nicely packaged for the world version of how I focus on things and how I get things done, which is true. But there's the inverse side of like the sort of like the why not, I guess.
Okay,
And
interesting.
there's always things that you can be doing instead. And I I feel the same way as you, Claire. There's all the time I have other ideas of like, oh man, that would be so sick. Like that's such a good idea. I should drop everything and work on that. But if you've already made your whole life dependent on that one thing, it's really hard to then work on something else.
How do you
And
make it dependent though? That's what I'm at. Like, that's what I'm curious.
you create financial incentives for it. You
Right.
make it so it's like, okay, I have to make my rent by doing this thing, or
I
I have
see.
to,
Like, there's that. Yeah.
there's
There's
that,
a
or just tell people,
non-negotiables. Mm-hmm.
or just tell people. You say, hey, I'm doing this thing. Like I'm in the process of doing that right now by
Mm-hmm.
telling everyone that listens to your podcast that I make games, I'm making Alphabeto, and it's funny how little people remember about you in the future. They'll remember one or two things. And so probably the people that listen to this, the only thing they'll remember is that, oh, Claire's brother was on the podcast and he's the guy that makes games.
Yeah.
And so if now I've branded myself as this person that does this thing, every time I meet somebody that only knows me from this, they'll be like, oh, you're the guy that makes games. So like further reinforce that idea of who I am and what I do. And so it makes it even more painful to be like, actually, I don't do that. I'm the guy that does this other thing. And that's super uncomfortable
Well,
having to tell
the
people that.
reason why I'm laughing, I've kind of done that. That's where I've recognized as you get older and you get really invested, I always write down like my focus for this year is this one thing because I
Yeah.
don't want to be the person who was like, funny story, changed my bio again and I'm now working in blank. Yeah.
hmm Yeah. I mean,
Okay. I like
at the
that. You
beginning,
really pigeonhole yourself in a good way.
yeah. And so it's like the fear of embarrassment is a good one. Like that's another way you can, I guess, burn the boats in a sense. And at the beginning of the year, my partner Andrea and I, we have a meeting where we talk about what we're going to do that year, what our goals are, what our focuses are. And one of the things that we did this year was what's the theme for your year? And you talked about that. I
Yeah.
remember you talking about that. And so my theme for this year is just commitment. And so it's just anything I've been holding off on committing to, whether it's business, whatever it is. It's like if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to go all in on that thing.
Mhm.
And so it really makes you think twice about like, do I really want to do this thing? Because if I do this thing, I have to go all in on this thing.
Yeah.
I took up running this year. I don't like running, but
Also, we're not good runners.
we're not
Why are
good
you
runners.
running?
Running, okay, because it's difficult. I'm doing it because it's difficult and because it's so easy to do. It's so easy to do quickly. It's not easy to run. It's easy to just walk outside and start
Yeah.
running.
Low barrier,
Low bear.
low entrance barrier. Yeah.
And then the other part of it is that my side sort of fun thing that I do for myself is I love reading biographies of the world's greatest founders.
I was gonna say this
And
great podcast, Founders.
exactly. And it's all
Yeah.
started because of the Founders Podcast. David Senra, if you haven't listened to that podcast, go and listen to, just scroll down until you find a company you've heard of and you potentially could be interested in. The most recent one I was reading and listened to was Sam Walton, to the founding of Walmart. Anyway, I love reading about these founders. And what I notice is so many of them have like run. First off, they're a lot of them are runners for some reason,
Hmm.
or they just have an exercise that they do very regularly.
That's
And
cool.
so they get out of the house, they exercise regularly,
It's
and
like a
running
uniform, Steve Jobs uniform. That's how I
totally.
think about exercise. It's just do it.
Yeah, you just get out and do it. So I was like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm just gonna do it for this year at least. So I went out and bought running shoes. And actually, thanks to Kevin, your husband, I got running tips from him because I'd always, this is super quick, but like I used to run and like heel strike all the time and it would kill my lower back. He taught me how to shift my weight forward and go more for like the midfoot to the front of the foot kind of thing. Anyway,
Shout
that
out to
helped my
Coffee
back.
Runner.
Yeah, so he's a running coach. And so if you're looking for a running coach, he's the guy. He's
We're
the
just gonna
goat.
hype everyone in our
Yeah,
family between
exactly.
we've all turned into entrepreneurs. Little slip here.
Hmm.
Hey, check out this person. Okay, now because I live in a world of running, and sorry to our listeners, but this is welcome to the Bouvet chatting. It goes in all different directions. But what kind of shoe did you get?
I got the Pegasus because that's what Kevin recommended.
I'm wearing a pair right now. This is
I just
hilarious.
do, when it comes to that kind of stuff, I just listen to the experts. Kevin's an expert. That's what he runs in. That's what I run in. So I don't think
Cool.
about it any more than that. And that's the other thing. It's like coming to this year, I'm just focusing on going back to this, but the biographies and like why I got into running or why I do things that are difficult or why I have this theme of commitment. And the other common trait about these biographies and autobiographies of these incredible individuals is they have these superhuman levels of commitment to the things that they're doing. I talked about Dyson earlier. His first product that he built on his own, where he had a patent for and everything, was a wheelbarrow. And sounds kind of
You
crazy.
went
It was actually
wheelbarrow
called a
to the
ball barrel.
Dyson?
Yeah, so it was a ball barrel. And throughout when he was learning how to manufacture it, one of the things was powder coating, and the powder would go all in the workshop, and then you'd have to collect it out of the air, otherwise people would be choking on paint dust. And so then they were using this filter, the filter sucked, and so he discovered the cyclonic vacuum. It was 10 meters tall, big stainless steel thing, and it would pull the powder out of the air. And he always thought, how cool would it be to make a miniaturized version of that and have it in your home, and a vacuum cleaner that didn't require a bag, didn't require a filter, the same way like the Hoover vacuum at the time used a bag, a filter, whatever. Anyway, he spent 14 years making the first vacuum cleaner because he got kicked out of his first wheelbarrow company. It did okay, did pretty well. He sold a lot of them, ended up being kind of a bad company, but he lost his patent, he lost everything. And he spent 14 years working on this vacuum cleaner. Each day he would do one new iteration to the vacuum. It took him 4.5 years to make the first prototype. And he was trying to find people to license it to. And then people would say yes. Like Amway was an example. They said yes. They're like, we'll do a licensing deal. After they did the deal, they went back on the deal. They ended up suing him. That was like a 5 year issue. He had to deal with a company in Japan that were giving him like no money to manufacture it. But so it was 14 years from the day he started working on it to the day he
No
sold his first
thanks.
vacuum. So it's
No.
like this
Wow.
insane level of commitment to
Yeah.
a product or an idea that any other person on earth would be like, you're like, you've lost your mind if you're doing
Yes.
that thing and you continue to do it. And
Yeah.
so that's really like when I tell people I'm working on a board game and it's the only thing that I'm thinking about in my world, it's like the only it's I burned all the other boats, like this is all I'm focused on. I get similar types of looks, but imagine doing this for another 14 years and never selling a single game. Then
No.
people would be like, you've completely lost your mind. So it's like you can learn so much from biography. So the goal
Yeah.
here is like this is my education. I'm thinking about my goal for this year is to read 25, minimum 25 of these biographies or autobiographies. And I'm thinking of it as like an MBA. One of the reasons, when this actually goes right back to the very beginning, one of the reasons I wanted to work in Silicon Valley is I wanted a mentor because I found it very difficult to find a good mentor. There was a couple teachers I had that were as close as you get to a mentor,
Hmm.
but I wanted to work with the best and get mentored by the best.
Yep.
And when I got out there, I realized it's not that simple to find mentors at the top level that are willing to work with you, they're willing to talk with you. And even harder, it's also hard to find those people that even exist, let alone if you do happen to find someone like that exists, get them to then be your mentor. So really what these books are is a mentorship. So I get to now get mentored by Sam Walton. I get to get mentored by James
Yeah.
Dyson, by David Ogilvy, by
Yeah.
Napoleon. Like I'm just looking around
Throw in
reading the
some
books.
women there, Thomas, just for our listeners, you
Well,
know.
recommend some women to me. There's a lot of them that I actually have on my list, but those are just the books I have right now. But I,
No,
yeah,
I agree. You know what? This is the thing, and I'm not trying to call you out on that, but it's interesting because, yeah, I work in tech and there is a lack of women
yeah.
in tech founders and leaders. And we could go on and on, but
Well, you know what? I think in 25 years, there's going to be lots of books about women founders. All of the books that I've referred
yeah.
to today, with the exception of James Dyson, all those people are dead. Sam Walton died in 92. David Ogilvy died in, I don't know when that was. The other one, Ben Franklin, he died in 100 years ago. These people are all dead.
Now, how we're going to wrap today
Yeah.
is it's interesting. And I read again, like you, sometimes you forget where the source was. It was a combination of a podcast or a Medium article I was reading, and it was talking about, the future of now the one man, one woman, one person show making $1 billion, being able to now with the rise of all the technologies from AI to Web3 to all the things that are now at our fingertips, we can build. You have intentionally over time built the one person show. You do everything. Is this realistic for most people? Or is this just a Thomas Bouvier wanting to, like, where are we heading? Because we're seeing now an individual can make a lot of money on their own and they don't have to have 100 employees to be successful.
Both yes and no to your question. The first thing is, I don't believe there exists a one person show anywhere because
No. Okay.
no matter what you're building, even if you don't talk to a single other individual and you do every single thing completely on your own, you're still working on the infrastructure that someone built before you. And you're
Fair.
benefiting hugely from whatever they did. Because if you decide to go be a one person show and say you're going to build the infrastructure of space, it simply would not be possible. You just couldn't do it. There's no chance.
There's nothing there before it.
But the thing is, as our infrastructure for products continues to grow and grow, and you have more tools and resources that you can rely on, yeah, you can be one person working on your little corner of a product that then leverages all that infrastructure. And I know you talk about it a lot, like some of these new AI applications, that there's a lot of ways you can use that to help you being a one person. I mean, really the thing I use AI for today is like as a personal assistant. It just
Yeah.
schedules my days and tells me what I'm
Yeah.
doing and everything. But is it realistic for everybody? I mean, as much as your tolerance to risk is, I guess, because when you're working at a really big company, you are basically just taking the total risk of the business and dividing it across how many people work there,
True.
which is cool because that means any individual is not actually taking on that much risk. And so if you're a person that doesn't like taking on risk, that's probably the right call. That's probably the right move for you. If you're a person that you think you handle risk better than the average person and you're okay with that and you enjoy that, then yeah, probably a one person show is great. But I also think that over time, the level of risk, like the surrounding infrastructure is getting so good
Mm-hmm.
that the risk involved with being a one person show
Lowering.
is lowering, lowering, lowering. It's like even if you had gone back 10 years ago, getting in touch with manufacturers to make even a paper product card game would have been very difficult. Today, very easy. Alibaba is a great place to start to get in touch with a lot of these manufacturers around the world. And I can make millions of units of this card game every month, and I'm a nobody. But back in the day, you had to go fly to these places and meet and build trust. And you had to show them you had this big team to support that level of. Now you can just be like, yeah,
Production. Yeah.
I'll just pay you the money. It's going to go in escrow, and then you're just going to make it, and then you're going to get your money, and I'm going to get my game or my product. And so over time, like that level of risk is going to come down to a point where it's going to be really achievable for anybody. As long as they have an idea
Yeah.
and have the follow through to see it through, then I think one
Yeah.
person operations or small teams will be probably
And you know
pretty
what?
successful.
I think that's it's reiterating what I'm starting to see. A lot of people taking that, we're moving more to that because the risk, I love that the risk is lowering. Okay, we're gonna end the session, our episode today. We're gonna break this up. Well, as you know, this is the second half, so I hope you're enjoying it. And we're gonna wrap up our Thomas Bouvier episode with asking the guy that makes games, what are ways our listeners today, if playing, let's say it is so foreign, the idea of being thinking, when was the last time you played? Like, how do we define that? Leave the listener today. What can they start doing that might be uncomfortable, but it's a start in the right direction to building it? And tell us why it's so important that we do incorporate play into our weekly lives.
The reality is you're probably not going to be that good at playing because you haven't done it in so long. So go for a walk. Don't bring headphones. Don't listen to a podcast. Don't listen to music. Just go for a walk and notice the things that are around you. I mean, we're coming into spring shortly here, so you're going to start to see some of the tulips. You're going to start to see some of the buds on the trees. You're starting to smell new things. You're going to see that some of the animals are going to be out and about. And that's playing. Just anything that's just for the pure enjoyment of something is playing. You don't need to join some league. You don't need to spend money. You don't need to have a playground that's built for adults. You can just go out and go for a walk and do nothing but notice the things that are around you. And voila, you've successfully played for the first time
Okay.
in maybe a long time. I don't know.
Okay, I like that. Let's say you've graduated that level. What would be phase two of playing?
Phase two of playing would be do it more. Find other people to play with. I think the biggest thing about playing is with the same thing with everything. People are always looking for like, how do you do it? Give us the thing to do it or however to do it. And that's why I made Alphabeto as like a catalyst or a tool to help you play.
Vehicle of play.
If Alphabeto is your thing, I mean, you can look up Alphabeto games. We making putting out 2 YouTube videos a day of my partner Andrea and I playing the game. Usually 1 to 2 videos every single day. You can go watch those videos. They've actually been doing way better than I ever thought. I didn't think people were going to care at all about us playing. In the last 2 weeks, we've gotten like 120,000 views or something like that on just us playing the game. So
I'm glad you're telling me because I haven't even seen these yet.
I usually don't tell people until the algorithm recommends it to me. And I saw you today on this thingamabob or whatever. And then
Okay.
like, okay, well now it's meant for you because the algorithm has decided you should see it. And so
So
it's
maybe
ready.
play could be watching someone else play.
It could be watching somebody else play. But yeah, got a Kickstarter for Alphabeto coming out in probably about 2 to 2.5 months from now. So you
Okay.
can check that out. And so if you want Alphabeto in your home, or if you want a tool to help you play a little more, a little better, feel free to pick that up and support an idea, really,
Support the
is what it is.
adults
Yeah.
finding our play. For those listeners, I will be sharing that if you subscribe to my, I say weekly, bi-weekly, it's when the email comes. You'll hear from me.
Sick.
Thomas, this is fun. I love that we have to record something for me to get an update on your life, but I don't know if anyone else is listening and has brothers. This is the way to do it. Get them recorded. You find out all the things. So, Thomas, thank you for joining the Small Town Entrepreneur Podcast. To our listeners, again, thank you for staying with us, and we will see you next week.
Thanks so much.
Cheers.